You have something very top of mind, right?
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about what makes someone the one. And you've been married before. I've never been married, but I do have some thoughts about it. And I wondered what your perspective was. I know you did get married young, how that has changed. And do you subscribe to the idea that there is a one?
Um, I, I guess again, it's such a loaded question because I think that the answer is yes, but I think with the caveat of you're one, like you're one person, and so is there the one? There's the one for you in terms of how you think of it, right? So,
Yeah.
could there be many ones? Absolutely. I don't think there's actually like one actual person.
Yeah.
Obviously not. But I think that there's a combination of things that make you you. That then you, as you evolve as a human being, you realize there may be things that you need and that you value and
Hmm.
again, depending on the point in time that you're at. So, what would be my version of the one today is is slightly different than what it was 10 years ago or 20 years ago, right? So when
Hmm.
I'm young and just a dumb guy, it's like just a hot girl is the one, right? And then
Okay.
as you get older, you realize, well, you know what? She should be hot, but we should be able to laugh and joke together. And then,
Hmm.
well, she should be that, but then also, and the criteria kind of changes.
Hmm.
So then as we go through relationships in general, we really do start to see that, oh, I kind of like this thing a little bit better, or I like this criteria, or I like, this aspect of a person.
Hmm.
Um, and again, even your definition of that thing, because let's say if I take something more abstract, like someone being like a loyal partner, right? Like
Hmm.
loyalty, me at 18 and 25 and now 40, I think of that word differently. Like
Hmm.
even the definition of the word is different. So although you could look at a criteria list from 20 years ago and they go, oh, we still have that word on there.
Hmm.
Well, yeah, but that word means something very different today.
Yeah.
So yes, there is, I think, the one for you, but again, you're also evolving as a one, and the way you look at people evolve. So I think that's why I always come back to just criteria and what you really think and how you think of it. And as that changes, you'll kind of redefine what you mean by the one.
Hmm. Yeah, so for me, I can't take ownership of this idea, but I wanted to touch, and again, when we think about these talks, anybody that comes across this, we're just trying to either validate the experiences that they've gone through or maybe give them some insight that they haven't thought of already to help give them maybe a different perspective that helps them out somehow. And so
Yeah.
for me, one of the things that I wish that I would have, I don't want to say known because that's so strong, but I wish that I growing up, I really thought there was like one person.
Yeah.
And I thought that for a really long time. Now, whether that's because of movies or I don't know what, my mom and dad got married really young. They were married for 26 years. Um, I don't know. I guess like I just thought to myself, I put a lot of pressure is the word. I'm thinking like there's this one person. I've got to figure out who this one person is. I don't know how. Is there going to be a blinking light above their head or whatever, sparks fly? And a lot of times I think as a young person, and again, we've talked about this on other episodes, but you really mistake butterflies and lustful feelings and all those things for maybe the one. And so a friend of mine, a very dear friend of mine, probably like 10 years ago, kind of, and I don't know, and again, I'm sure that I thought this outside of that time, but it really struck a chord with me. And he was like, here's the thing, Jen. Do I think that there's one person, that, like you kind of said, that, is just that one person could do? And he was and is a very successful person and very driven, knows what he wants. And he's like, Jen, the thing is like, just throw out an arbitrary number, 5 people, right? I think that I could marry these 5 girls that I've dated. They're awesome, they're amazing, and each one of them I would have had a different life with. Maybe the one I would have been a college football coach in Auburn, Alabama, and we would have had the white picket fence and just settled down and whatever. Maybe the other one we would have traveled the world, and so that would have touched on that piece of my soul, if you will, or that piece that I felt like I wanted to do with a partner. We travel the world, and we live in Bali, and we split our time between the US and a foreign country every year so that our children, all these things. And as he started talking about these things, it finally settled with me that, yeah, I really do understand. And because I guess I used to think to myself, like, how is it that somebody marries somebody? You hear these stories, they're married for 40 years, and then 6 months later they marry their high school sweetheart from when they were 16 that they lost contact with, and now they're in love. And but the truth is that I think that there's many different versions of love.
Yeah.
And like you said, and like he said, you can have a different life. It just depends on, and then I guess to even condense it even further, yeah, I think that eventually, hopefully, we meet somebody that maybe does fit all of those things, and that maybe is a catalyst for us to find that one person. Because I know for him that did happen. Like I said, his dating pool was like no other, just the most amazing, successful, beautiful women. And I would hear him and I'd be like, but what's missing? So like, and like he said, like there was just like a one-off on each one of those situations, but he could have easily married any one of those women and had an amazing life with them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I think
So
that the difficult part, I think, and what it sounds like with, I don't know this person, of course, but it sounds like he's an amicable person in general, right? So
yeah.
just the very thought that, hey, my life could go in these different directions means that he's amicable to that happening.
Yeah.
So now imagine if he wasn't, right? Say he was like, no, I'm going to live in this big city. I'm going to have this kind of job. My wife has to fit into this. Well, then
Hmm.
that the pool of people then shrinks, right? But if he's saying, hey, I could have traveled the world with this one girl, I could have been a high school football coach with this one.
Yeah.
Well, he's inherently an adaptable person, which probably means that he would find the best characteristics that he could adapt to, which
Hmm.
then inherently also then means that whoever he's finding isn't the one, because he would have adapted to the characteristics that he thought were the best ones based on what he wanted at the moment, right? So, and it doesn't mean that those people aren't his versions of the one. It just means that by being so adaptable and looking at what could be and trying to make things happen, um, you inherently then know that I could be happy in a lot of situations because I'm internally happy. And
Hmm.
what my partner brings to the table is now going to affect the outcome because
Right.
I'm so amicable to what she may want as well.
Hmm. Well, and I think it was self-aware enough. He didn't go down those paths because that wasn't the right choice for him, but he was smart enough to know that how much value each one of those people held, and he could have had a really beautiful life with any one of them. And I guess so for me, like I just wondered kind of, like I said, just a male perspective on like the one, and like you said, it boils down to criteria, but is it an internal feeling? Is it that, maybe the one is, like it could be any one of 10 different people or something like that? Or do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's
No,
it's a
I guess,
lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure for young people
yeah.
to, and then I think even more so now that there's so much it seemingly, which is not really the reality, there's so much choice and so much influence with social media and all these things, and they think like, oh well, then this person might not be the one that's the thing that makes me fearful, I think, for the younger generation, is that thing where, well, this person is great, but on TikTok, I saw this girl that like I could totally see myself with, and she could be the mother of my children, kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Well, but okay, so I think the best way to answer this and kind of help you have some perspective on it is to say that, okay, so the TikTok example, of course, again, because of choice, you're right. Like we're exposed to so much more now than we ever have been.
Right.
The problem with that is that, people look at choice on the surface. So yes, that girl you saw on TikTok or Instagram is beautiful, but you have to then realize I know nothing about her, right? I know nothing about
Hmm.
how she's even viewing those situations and why she's doing a certain thing and
Hmm.
how I would fit into that and how she would want me to fit into that.
Right.
So yeah, on the surface, I can look at a thing and it seems one way. But I think in terms of like the real dynamic of a relationship and the one, it's almost kind of like, if we took it off of relationships for a second, we said, how would you know that like the school you went to was the best one? How would you
Mhm.
know the investment you made, the house you bought, the car
Right.
you bought was the exact best one? There is no
Mhm.
way to know, right? Because
Mhm.
if I bought a Mercedes or BMW or Porsche, I'm going to then utilize that tool in the best way that I see fit. And then because I don't have reference for the other ones, I'm going to say, this was the best one. Now, if I
Mhm.
have a problem with that thing based on how I used it, how I, utilized it, I might then say, oh, I should have made a different choice, right? Like
Right.
if my Porsche breaks down and I go, okay, well, that was because how I was driving and I wasn't utilizing that the right way, I'm going to go, well, I should have gone with the Mercedes. Like, what a bad choice, right? But
Mhm.
was it really the bad choice, or was it the idea of how I viewed the thing? So
Mhm.
um, I think inherently we do have a lot of choices. I think the disconnect comes from the fact that we don't really know why we're making the choices and the criteria that lead to them. So, in that idea of like, well, what do you actually like? But then why do you like it? But then how do you know when you find it? That's
Mhm.
all asking one question, but it's breaking it down into three layers for then you to get
Mhm.
more clarity on it. So if we
Mhm.
think of people the same way, like your friend perhaps, yes, he could have had a great life with any of those women,
Mhm.
and he chose not to. But he was actually trying to think of why either he did or he didn't. So, hey, I
Mhm.
could think of all the great things, but I feel like I'm missing this one thing. So the
Mhm.
question will be, if he doesn't find the one that he really wants, is it
Mhm.
because he's looking at too many of those variables and wanting all of those things across all
Mhm.
ranges? Like, do I want the technology that's in a BMW and the handling of a Porsche and the, lighting features or exterior detail of a Mercedes? And well, I
Mhm.
can't have all of that, right? Unless I buy all
Mhm.
those cars.
Mhm.
So that's going to be the problem. It's like, well, what's the best for you today? So if I have two kids, the two-seater Porsche is probably not the best car to choose,
Mhm.
right? But I can't say it wasn't the best choice, period. So that's why criteria I think is so important. And I think looking at why you like something and how you're really seeing it and
Mhm.
not being blinded by the shininess of new
Mhm.
um, is part of this process. So, and I think just again to answer the question of one, like one is so
Yeah.
hard because there's so many variables. Because at any
Mhm.
moment, your life can change, your family dynamics can change, which change your circumstance, which then inherently changes everything about your criteria.
Mhm.
That one is very difficult, but I think it only can boil down to like how you see your criteria and then how you can validate that you have it.
Yeah, and I think that also, a message just again for young people, I'm always trying to think of like, okay, so what's the takeaway? Is just because people seem more accessible, doesn't mean um that you shouldn't like lessen the value of just the human experience in general. Do you know what I'm saying? So meaning that like just because you feel like you can access that many more people doesn't mean you're going to have successful relationships with those people or get to know those people or whatever. I mean, that is the perception, is that all these people that you're friends with on these social networks and platforms and those kinds of things, but in reality we really need to, I feel like, like I said, stress how valuable the human connection is in general. You know what I mean? And really doing a deep dive on, like you said, what is important, and, why respect is important, and why, all these different, things about being a human being are important so that they can make those educated and informed decisions as they're dating and when they do encounter those people. You know what I mean? I feel like, and again, this is my perception just because probably of my age, but I feel like a lot of young people, like I said, they feel like people are almost like disposable or something like that, just because you're so, oh, well, I'll make new friends on the internet, or I'll do this or that or that. And again, that's my perception. If
Yeah.
I don't live in that world right now, but if I were to say anything, is just to remember that, human connection is so powerful. Your words matter, your actions matter.
Yeah.
And when you're looking and thinking about someone who's the one, like you said, you really do have to investigate what that means for you, what your, like you said, criteria is, and will that evolve, and will that person fit into that picture for the long run? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and just so you know, like I completely second your opinion there. Like I do think that social media access has given people a false sense of options.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think everything we're saying actually inherently comes down to the person. So it's not
Yes.
about the external world. It's about what work have you done to understand yourself, understand your lifestyle, understand your needs, understand your definitions. Because if you do
Yeah.
that, you're probably less likely to look at that, person on Instagram and go, well, I could have a great life with them. Like you're just
Mm-hmm.
less likely to do that because you're going to
Sure.
go, well, I'm more mindful of the fact that that's just an image. That's just a thing that I see. No
Mm-hmm.
different than when, again, we take it out of the context, you see a photo of, a burger at some place and then you see the real thing in real life, or a picture of a hotel room, then you get there in real life. Everything you're seeing on, TV, social media, whatever it is
Mm-hmm.
the image of it. And then now you have to go experience the thing. So the
Mm-hmm.
more that you're personally self-aware, the more research you're doing for yourself. And this is why the easiest way, I think, to help solve these issues, even though it's not easy, is to take it down to the value of one, which is just you. Like, what is the work that you will do for yourself, that you will be thinking about your criteria? What do you want? How do you define it? And
Mm-hmm.
then, you know, also knowing that that can evolve, that you're not gonna, it doesn't have to be rigid. Like what you said at 18 or 21 does not have to last your whole life. If
Mm-hmm.
the data changes, then you change, right? Like, and that applies to everything. Like, hey, I love this city growing up, but now that I'm older and I like different things,
Mm-hmm.
not my favorite city anymore, right?
Yeah.
That kind of food, your taste changed because your experience changed. So it's
Mm-hmm.
the same thing with people and everything else, but that still comes down to the person. Like you have to do that work. And I think too
Yeah.
often, and this is a common theme, that people want the work to be done for them and say
Mm-hmm.
they just, I want to show up and then
Mm-hmm.
where are my options? And it's supposed to be great, right? And it's like, no, like it's not going to be great until you make it great.
Mm-hmm. And to speak to that point, and just to add to it, is that you could put your perfect person right in front of you, like you said. So she walks in the door and she's everything that meets all those things, but if you're not willing to do the work, because relationships are work, and it doesn't matter how perfect that person is or how well they fit into your checklist or any of those things, it's still going to take work, because that's just the way things are. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
yeah, to add to that, I think you're absolutely right. You know, you have to be working on yourself always, and then you have to know that whatever journey you embark upon with another person is going to be work from the very, even during the honeymoon phase. It's adjusting to one another's quirks or this or that or whatever, and then far beyond that.
So then
Yeah.
let's say if we go back to the original point about the one, right? Then like I think that's kind of leading us down a nice path to say that maybe the one is for you to constantly be figuring out who you are because you're one,
Mm-hmm.
and then saying, is the person that you're picking going to be able to evolve effectively themselves and evolve with you as you're
Yeah.
evolving? So maybe the true definition of the one is someone who can, in the best possible way, evolve with you as you're evolving in your best possible.
Correct.
Maybe some.
Totally. I think that's a great takeaway and a great place to end that. Yeah, I think that's sums it up.
Hey everybody, I'm Adam Khalil. Thank you so much for listening to this video. I definitely want you to subscribe to the channel if you want to hear more content like this. But if this content had any value to you, click the like button as well.